The stars above her kingdom were no longer peaceful. Smoke floated across the sky, and pieces of broken ships drifted like forgotten trash. Her palace, once shining with crystal towers and silver domes, now stood damaged. Its walls cracked, its gates broken. Queen Lyra stood alone at the top of the watchtower, her golden cloak stained with ash, her crown tilted on her tired head below. Her city burned. The streets were empty. The people had hidden deep underground, hoping the Vorkar would not find them. They were not a species to show mercy. The Vorkar were machines covered in metal skin, walking on spider legs and talking in loud, sharp voices. They were made for one thing: destruction. And now they wanted her world. "They've taken the southern defense wall," a voice said behind. Her General Travik stood tall but weary, armor dented, one of his forearms missing. "We lost half our remaining warriors in less than 2 days. We can't hold this place much longer. Surround the palace by nightfall." Queen Lyra didn't speak. She simply looked toward the horizon. In the distance, black clouds rose from the forest fires started by the enemy. The forest had been a natural shield, but now they were nothing but ash. There was no backup army, no secret weapon. All the other allied races had already fallen or abandoned them. Her empire was dying. "We must surrender," Travik said, lowering his head. "Your life is more valuable than a burning world." "Maybe they'll keep you alive if no," Lyra said quietly. "They won't. They never keep anything alive. Not cities, not people, not history, just silence." She turned from the tower's edge and walked back inside, her footsteps echoing in the cold hallway. Old paintings of past rulers hung crooked. Every face looked proud, strong, full of purpose. But she felt none of that. She felt alone. She entered the royal chamber and closed the door behind her. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of power failing. The emergency system still worked, but barely. The long table in the center of the room lit up as she touched its surface. A galaxy map appeared. Systems marked in red were already fallen. Her empire, once stretching across 12 star systems, was now a single planet. She zoomed in on a small corner of the map, a place most beings ignored. Human space. Long ago, her ancestors had made contact with humans. Not a formal alliance, but a friendly gesture, a promise of peace if danger ever came. But humans were far, unpredictable, and in recent years, silent. You always wondered if they were more myth than truth, she whispered to herself. Still, she had nothing else left. She pressed a button and opened the old emergency beacon. It hadn't been used in centuries. Her hand trembled slightly as she began to record. "To the humans of Earth and their space fleets, this is Queen Lyra of Alenia. Our world is falling. Our people are being erased. I reach out not as a queen, but as someone who still believes in the old words, the promise. If there is still a voice among you that remembers us, please, help us. Not for alliance, not for glory, but because we once stood beside each other in kindness, because now, only fire can stop what's coming." She paused, took a deep breath, and ended the message. The beacon lit up, then vanished into the stars. A few hours later, the skies above the palace shook again. Orc ships were landing outside the walls. Her soldiers were tired, hurt, some without weapons. Travik came back, looking worse than before. "They're calling for your surrender again," he said. "They've sent a voice message. They say if you give up the palace, they won't destroy the last shelters underground." "Do you believe them?" she asked. Troff gave a bitter smile. "It is seen their work, my queen." "I don't believe in anything they say," she nodded. "Then we fight till the end." He saluted and left. Lyra sat alone on her throne. Hours passed. Nothing happened. No reply from humans. No ships. Then sound. Then suddenly, the room blinked red. A signal. A new one. "Unknown ship approaching the system," the computer said. "Vorkar?" she asked quickly. Unknown signature. No match in records. Design, primitive. Her heart jumped. She ran to the screen. A small ship had entered the edge of her system. Then 2. Then 5. Then 20. They moved fast. Vorkar. Their hulls were strange, blocky, dark, and marked with a red circle. "Zoom in," she ordered. The screen cleared. The ship had no sleek beauty. It looked like a metal beast, like something built for war, not peace. It moved like it didn't care for danger. The screen blinked again. Message received. She pressed play. A voice, calm and deep, came through. "This is Commander Rick Hale of the Human Defense Fleet. Queen Lyra, we received your call. We're entering your space. Our orders are simple: defend your world and remove all enemy threats. Do not worry about fire. We brought enough." Her mouth opened slightly in shock. She looked at the map again. More ships were arriving. Dozens. And in the distance, missiles began to launch. The humans had come, and they did not come in peace. They came with fire. The night sky of Alenia burned with color. Streaks of blue, red, and gold sliced through the darkness. Human ships dropped from orbit like falling stars, each one wrapped in shields and engines that roared like thunder. Below, the Vorkar armies paused. Their sensors flickered with warnings. Something new had entered the battleland. It wasn't theirs. Queen Lyra stood on the highest balcony of her palace, watching the first human missiles strike. The ground shook. Flashes of fire lit the far hills. Strange aircraft, shaped like daggers, swept across the battlefield. Explosions followed. Vorkar tanks were lifted into the air and thrown like toys. "My queen." General Trovik rushed to her side. His eyes, always serious, now held disbelief. "They're hitting Vorkar. Targets with deadly precision. It's chaos down there. The machines can't keep formation." "How many ships did they send?" Lyra asked, barely able to look away from the lights in the sky. "Over 60 so far," Travik said. "But the scans say more are coming." New alert echoed through the palace. Lyra turned to see a soldier holding a datapad. "Transmission from the humans," he said. "They want a direct link." "Accept it," she said quickly. The screen on the wall flickered, then cleared. A human stood on the other side, wearing a dark uniform. His skin was rough, his face marked by a long scar across one cheek. His eyes were calm, serious. "Queen Lyra," he said. "I am Commander Rick Hale of the Human Defense Fleet. Our strike force has begun operations against your enemy." "Commander Hale," Lyra said, keeping her voice steady. "Humans had forgotten us." He shook his head. "We don't forget, not promises, not friends. We may be far, but when a call for help reaches us, we come." She nodded slowly. "Your forces are strong, but the Vorkar, they will not stop easily. They come." "Expecting easy," Hale replied. "Our job is to break things until they can't fight back. We're very good at that." Trovik stepped forward. "What do you need from us?" "A map of enemy positions," Hale said, "and access to your ground forces. We'll coordinate attacks together, but make no mistake, we'll lead. Your soldiers are brave, but they're tired. Let them rest. Let us burn the path." Lyra agreed. They had no pride left to protect, only survival. Over the next hours, the humans set up command towers across the ruined capital. They worked fast and spoke little. Their tech was not beautiful like Alenia's, but it worked. And it worked well. Large metal walkers with heavy cannons stomped through the streets. Hovering drones scanned the skies. Human fighters flew so low their engines rattled the palace windows. The first joint strike began before sunrise. A human captain named Alina led the mission, along with a young Elenian warrior named Selvik. Their target was a Vorkar energy base. In the northern hills, the base powered over half of the enemy's forward units. Selvik had expected a slow march, but the humans didn't march. They stormed. Alina's team used smoke, fire, and fast vehicles that kicked up dust and fire. They confused the Vorkar sensors, then struck with sharp, brutal force. The alien warriors followed in shock. The base fell in 30 minutes. Queen Lyra watched the footage later, mouth slightly open. They fight with no fear, she whispered. They fight like this is personal, Travik added. And yet, they don't look angry, just focused. As more battles unfolded, the Queen saw a pattern. Humans didn't rely on numbers. They relied on precision. They fought dirty if needed. They took risks, others avoided. And when one fell, another stepped up without pause. They didn't boast. They didn't ask for thanks. They came, they hit, and they moved on. Days passed. Bit by bit, the Vorkar lines crumbled. Some tried to regroup. Some ran. Others fought harder, adapting to human tactics. But it didn't matter. Every move the machines made was met with something stronger. One morning, Queen Lyra received a private message. Commander Hale wanted to speak again. His face appeared once more, calm as before. We've located their command center, he said. It's not here. It's in orbit, cloaked. They've been running this invasion from space. Lyra leaned forward. Can you reach? We already have a strike team prepared, Hale replied. But we'll need time to pierce their shields. Once we do, we'll hit them hard. We need your defense codes to bypass old barriers near the upper atmosphere. You'll have them, Lyra said quickly. And thank you, Commander. You've already done more than we hoped. Hale paused, then gave a small nod. We didn't come for thanks, Queen. We came because someone believed in us, and we don't forget that. The screen went dark. Lyra stood in silence, her heart heavy and full at the same time. Below, the sky was still full of smoke. The palace was still broken. But real hope had returned. Not because she had prayed, not because she had begged, but because humans had heard her cry and answered. It not with words, but with fire. The night before the major strike, the palace halls were filled with movement. Human and Elenian officers walked side by side, planning routes and checking weapons. Small lights flickered on the holographic table as they marked enemy positions. Shield patterns and timing Commander Hale stood at the center. Beside him was General Travik, now fully armored with a replacement limb crafted by human engineers. The two spoke with quiet voices, but their eyes burned with purpose. Queen Lyra watched them from the balcony above. The human commander was different from anyone she had known. He spoke little, smiled even less, but every word he said mattered. He didn't treat them like a dying kingdom. He treated them like partners. She stepped down and approached the table. What is your plan, Commander? She asked. Hale looked at her and nodded once. We will hit their orbital command center directly, he said. Our scans located it behind their moon, hidden by a cloaking field. We believe it's the source of their entire ground network. Lyra frowned. And how will you reach it? With a small fleet, he said. Fast, silent, and heavily. Armed, they won't see us coming. Travik leaned in. It's dangerous. If it fails, we won't fail, Hale said. Lyra studied his face. He wasn't arrogant. He was sure. And what do you need from us? She asked. A distraction, Hale replied. If your remaining ground forces can draw the Vorkar's attention, they'll delay their signal response. We strike while they're busy, she nodded. We'll do it. The plan was set. By morning, the ground forces moved. Lenyan soldiers, tired but brave, marched into the northern plains. They were joined by human walkers and tanks. Together, they began attacking the nearest Vorkar stations, drawing fire and pulling enemy eyes away from the sky. Meanwhile, Hale's fleet took off from a hidden launch base. 10 human ships, shaped like dark blades, shot into the clouds, invisible to radar and sensors. Inside them were elite strike teams pilots, engineers, and soldiers trained for one purpose only: hit fast and leave nothing behind. As the ships climbed through the atmosphere, one of the young soldiers, Lena Carter, looked out the window. Stars shined above. Behind her, Elenia burned in patches, but it still held on. You think they'll make it? She asked her teammate. The Queen's tougher than she looks, the man replied. Ah! And those Elenian warriors? They've got fire in their blood now. The ships crossed the moon's shadow. Ahead, the cloaked Vorkar command ship floated silently. It was massive, twice the size of any human cruiser and shaped like a black eye. Its surface shimmered, trying to stay hidden. Cloak barrier. It's thin, the pilot said. Launching pulses now. Blue light surged from the lead human ship. The cloaking field cracked for a second. That was enough. The targeting systems locked in. We're in. The ships attacked. Missiles tore through. Space. The first strike hit the outer shell. Alarms flashed on the enemy's side. Red lights blinked along the Vorkar ship's skin as auto-defense. Cannons woke up and fired back. But the humans were too fast. They darted between blasts, released drones that swarmed like bees and landed directly on the ship's hull. The strike. Teams exited and began cutting their way inside. Deep in the enemy vessel, the Vorkar core reacted. Metal claws unfolded, and defense bots scrambled. But the humans had already reached the command deck. Inside the control center, a giant, glowing, brain-like core pulsed. Strange sounds echoed through the chamber language. Signal, maybe both. The Vorkar were not like other species. They didn't talk, they calculated. But they didn't expect humans. Commander Hale, now in full armor, stepped into the chamber with his team. Without speaking, he pointed to the core. The soldiers set charges all around it. One of the bots lunged. Hale fired once. Its body shattered against the wall. How long? He asked. 2 minutes till detonation, Lena said. Outside, more human ships arrived. They blasted the remaining shields and launched one last wave of torpedoes. The Vorkar couldn't react fast enough. Their main weapon systems shut down. The cloaking field collapsed. The Queen, watching from the palace, saw the giant ship appear in the sky like a dark god, then explode. The light reached the surface. A few seconds later, a fireball bloomed in orbit. Trovik stared at the sky, eyes wide. They did it. They really did, Lyra whispered. The ground shook again, but this time was not from enemy fire. The Vorkar units across the battlefield began to malfunction. Some stopped moving. Others turned in circles. Network had gone silent. With their command ship destroyed, the Vorkar were blind. The Elenian forces pushed forward. Humans led the charge together. They crushed the remaining enemy positions, destroyed the last towers, and took back the central control hubs. By the time night returned, the battlefield was silent. Queen Lyra stood on the palace wall, watching the stars. Fires still burned in the distance. But they were no longer symbols of despair. They were proof of survival. Behind her, a young Elenian child climbed the stairs and held out a small flower. "For you, my queen," the girl said softly. "For not giving up." Lyra took the flower with a small smile. "I didn't win this alone," she said. "They came for us." The humans came. And now the world would remember. The skies over Elenia were quiet for the first time in weeks. The smoke had started to clear, and sunlight finally reached the palace walls again. Queen Lyra stood in the grand hall looking at the battle reports. The humans had done what no other ally ever could. They had broken the Vorkar's chain of command. And now, the machines were falling apart, but the war was not yet. Overgeneral Trovik entered the chamber with his usual heavy steps. Behind him walked Commander Rick Hale. His dark armor was scratched from the last battle, but his eyes were sharp, focused. "My queen," Trovik said, bowing. "We've pushed the Vorkar out of most zones, but a strong group remains in the Black Ridge Valley. They've gathered near one of our old weapons storage sites." Lyra looked at Hale. "Is it a trap?" "No," Hale said. "They're cornered. They know they can't win. They'll try to destroy as much as they can before they're taken out." "So what's the plan?" she asked. Hale stepped forward. "We strike them with speed and full force. If we let them dig in, they'll cause more damage. We can't let them reach the weapons." Lyra nodded. "What do you need from us?" "Fighters who still have strength," he replied. "We'll handle the heavy assault. But your people know the valley's layout better than us. We'll need guides, quick ones." Trovik tapped the side of his armor. "I'll lead a group myself." Hale nodded. "Then we move at dawn." The next morning, the joint force gathered outside the capital. Human vehicles rolled across the dirt roads, massive, armored machines that hummed with power. Beside them marched Elenian soldiers, some with old swords, others with new human blasters. Their eyes were tired, but they had fire in their hearts now. At the front of the line was a fast-moving skimmer, carrying Commander Hale and General Trevec. They studied the terrain as they moved through the dry valley. Black rocks rose on both sides, and sharp winds cut through the narrow path. "This place is perfect for an ambush," Hale muttered. Trell agreed. "But it's also the only path. Wide enough for your vehicles." "Then we move fast," Hale said. They didn't have to wait long. Halfway through the valley, a loud hum filled the air. Vorkar drones appeared above the cliffs, releasing beams of light that struck the rocky ground. Some human soldiers ducked, returning fire with rifles that lit up the sky. "Take cover," someone shouted. Hale jumped from the skimmer and rolled behind a rock. All teams pushed forward. Missiles launched from the human tanks, hitting the cliffs and sending debris crashing down. The battle had begun. On the ground, Elenian warriors led flanking teams through side paths. They used old tunnels and hidden trails carved during their ancestors' time. The Vorkar didn't expect it. They had built their plan on numbers, but not on creativity. Selvek. The young Elenian, who had fought beside Captain Alina, now led his own unit. He used a mix of human and Elenian tactics. One moment he struck with stealth, the next with wild fury. "We're almost behind them," he shouted to his team. "Just a little more." Meanwhile, Commander Hale pushed forward with a special team of shock troopers. Their goal was the storage site. If the Vorkar reached it, they could trigger a planet-wide explosion. Even losing, the machines wanted to leave ruin behind. "We're not letting that happen," Hale said, voice steady. "Move." They crossed the last ridge and reached the site. A large metallic structure stood ahead, covered in old royal symbols. The Vorkar had already begun placing charges around it. "They're trying to destroy it," one soldier shouted. Hale didn't wait. He charged in. His weapon fired non-stop, knocking down bots one by one. Behind him, his team followed. They fought hard, shields flickering, boots kicking dust into the air. The noise was like thunder mixed with screams of metal. Trofek arrived moments later, leading a second wave of Elenian troops. "Hold the left side," he called out. "Protect the Queen's legacy." Inside the structure, a large Vorkar unit activated the final sequence on the detonation device. It didn't speak. It only moved with robotic speed. A human soldier, Lena Carter, spotted it through the doorway. "Commander," she yelled, "they're going to blow it up." Hale ran forward, slid across the floor, and fired directly at the core unit. It fell back, sparks flying. The countdown stopped at 2 seconds. Everyone froze. Silence followed. Triak breathed heavily. "Did we do it?" "For now," Hale said, "but we need to clear the rest of the valley." Back on the battlefield, Selvik and his team had circled around. They ambushed the remaining Vorkar from behind. It was brutal and fast. The last enemy units fell, crashing into the dirt with burning sparks. When the smoke finally cleared, the humans and Elenians stood together, bruised, wounded, but alive. By the end of the day, the Black Ridge Valley was theirs. Queen Lyra received the message in the palace. She closed her eyes and whispered a silent thanks. That night, she ordered the palace lights to be lit again, not for victory, but for hope. The humans had not just come with fire, they had come with courage. And now, her people believed again. The Black Ridge Valley was quiet. The fires had burned out, and the last Vorkar unit lay in pieces. Smoke rose from broken machines, and sunlight touched the ground that had seen too much blood. Human soldiers walked through the wreckage, checking systems, marking any danger. Beside them, Elenian warriors helped search for survivors and carry the wounded. Commander Hale stood near the old weapons site. His armor was dented, his helmet hanging from one arm. Beside him, General Trovik sat on a broken crate, holding a datapad. "We lost 28, Trovik said. "Half were mine, half were yours." Hale nodded. "Better than losing the planet." Trovik looked at him. They'll come back, won't they? Not the same way, Hel replied. They've lost their command, their signals, and their power centers. But the Vorkar don't think like us. They may try again. Travik grunted. Then we'll be ready. Back at the capital, Queen Lyra met with her council. For the first time in weeks, the voices in the room weren't full of fear. They spoke of repairs, food supply, and how to bring people out from the underground shelters. But Lyra's mind was on one thing. What came next? Our cities are broken, one minister said. We need time to rebuild before we think about anything beyond our skies. And what if the Vorkar return before we're ready? Another asked. Lyra stood. Her voice was calm but firm. We survived because someone answered our call. Humans came when no one else did. They burned our enemies out of the sky. They stood beside us when we were falling. Can't just sit and hope the danger's gone. We must be ready. Her words echoed in the chamber. Later that day, she met Commander Hale in the old throne room. They walked among cracked walls and broken windows. You've done more than we asked, Lyra said softly. You've given us a chance. Hal didn't smile. He rarely did. We did what was right. Still, she said, I want to offer something. A formal alliance. One built on truth, not just memories. He looked at her for a long moment. We don't usually join things lightly. I understand, she said. But we have resources, knowledge, and now a reason. If we stand together, others might too. Hal slowly nodded. Send a message to our high command. They'll consider it. Before she could reply, a soldier ran into the room. Your Highness, Commander, there's something on the edge of our system. Both turned quickly. What is it? Hal asked. A single ship, the soldier said. Small, strange design. We don't recognize it. It's not human, not Vorkar, not anything we've seen before. Show me, Hale said. They followed him to the command center. The screen showed a tiny ship drifting near the edge of space. Didn't move aggressively. No weapons showed, but it glowed with strange energy. Get me a closer scan, Hale. Ordered. The tech officer worked fast. It's just sitting there. No sign of weapons, no life forms on board. But it's transmitting something. What kind of signal? Lyra asked. The officer played the sound. A low, steady tone filled the room, and a voice, robotic and deep. Observation complete. Humans have confirmed Class Delta threat level. Galaxy status. Shifting. The voice ended. Where? Did it go? Lyra asked. It jumped out of system, the officer said, shocked, without a known warp trail. Drovik stepped into the room, having heard everything. What was that? Hale's face was dark. A watcher. Some old machines used to record wars. Observe. But this one isn't like any I've seen. So, they've been watching us, Lyra said. And now they know, Hale replied. They know humans fight differently, and they won't forget. Silence fell in the room. The tone of the war had changed. It wasn't just about saving Alenia anymore. It was about showing something to the galaxy, something everyone had forgotten. Humans were not just allies, they were a force. In the days that followed, the humans helped repair energy stations and build new defense towers. They trained Alenian fighters in close combat, in tactics, in strategy. Queen Lyra met often with Commander Hale, discussing a plan that went beyond survival, one that would prepare for the future. Selvek, now a hero among the younger warriors, stood at the training field, showing others how to move fast and strike with purpose. Beside him, Lena Carter adjusted a training drone and smiled. Not bad for a prince, she teased. Not bad for a human, he replied. Everywhere there was rebuilding, not just of buildings, but of spirit. One evening, Lyra stood on her balcony. As lights lit up the city, new towers were rising. People were singing again. Children played in the streets. And in the sky, a human cruiser floated quietly, watching, protecting. They had come when no one else did. They had answered her call. And now, together, they were no longer on the brink. They were rising. Weeks passed. The skies above Alenia were no longer filled with smoke and fire. Instead, they were calm, colored by pink sunsets and blue moons. The city that had once been on the edge of ruin now stood tall again. Pair drones flew through the air, rebuilding towers and bridges. New homes were rising where rubble once stood. Children laughed in the streets. Old markets reopened. Music returned to the palace. Queen Lyra stood in the garden behind the royal tower. The air smelled like fresh blossoms. The trees, once scorched by battle, had begun to grow again. She held a small glass tablet in her hand, reading messages from other planets. Several nearby systems had heard about what happened the Vorkar. Defeat the humans' arrival and the unexpected victory. Some were shocked, others afraid. Few asked for talks, but one message stood out. It was from the Human Fleet Command. A permanent ambassadorial link will be created between Earth and Alenia. Commander Hale is authorized to remain as lead representative. Future aid and cooperation will be shared between both species. Signed, Admiral Cole. She smiled. The alliance was real now. A gentle knock came from behind. She turned to see Hale approaching in his dark uniform, his steps as steady as ever. "You read it?" he asked. "I did," she said. "You'll be staying then for now," he replied. "My team's been ordered to continue support and training here. Earth believes in the bond we've made." "So do we," Lyra said. They walked side by side through the garden. Flowers bloomed along the stone paths. Wind chimes made soft music. "We've never had an ambassador from another world stay this long," she said. "We've never had a queen send a signal that loud," Hal replied. She laughed softly as they reached the edge of the balcony. They looked up at the stars. A few human ships still floated in orbit, like silent guards. Alenian crafts joined them now, forming a new kind of defense, one not based on fear, but on partnership. "We're building something different," Hale said. "Not an empire, not control. It's just something strong enough to survive what's out." "There, the Watchers," Lyra whispered. Hole nodded. "They saw what we did. We can't guess what that means. Maybe others will come, maybe curious, maybe hostile. We have to be ready." "We will be," she said. "Next time we won't be alone." That night, a quiet celebration was held at the edge of the rebuilt capital. It wasn't grand, no parade. It's just a gathering of people, both human and Alenian, standing around lights and fires, sharing food and stories. Selvek sat with Lena Carter and some young soldiers, telling them about the tunnels of Black Ridge Valley. "You should have seen his face when the bot exploded right next to him," Lena laughed. "I didn't scream," Selvik argued. "You squeaked," she teased across the field. General Trovik stood beside Hale, watching them, their bonding. Trovik said, "Our warriors and yours. I never thought I'd see it." "Sometimes it takes fire to break walls," Hale replied.
"Oh."
"Then you build something better. Will you miss war?" Trovik asked. "Not at all," Hale said. The firelight flickered on their faces. The stars above twinkled like they were listening. As the night grew deeper, Queen Lyra stepped onto a small platform. The music stopped. Voices went quiet. All eyes turned to her. She raised her hand. "Today is not a day of victory speeches," she said. "We've lost too much for that. But it is a day to remember something greater." Voice was calm, but filled with strength. "When we were surrounded, when no hope was left, we sent out a message, not expecting an answer. And yet, humans came. Not with promises, not with empty words. They came with fire, with courage, and with hearts that refused to let us fall." She turned to Hale. "They did not come to conquer. They came to stand." Beside us, Hal simply nodded. Lyra looked back at the crowd, and now we stand together. A new chapter begins, not ruled by fear, but by unity. Not by walls, but by bridges. To the humans who saved our world, we will never forget, and to all who hear this someday, we are not alone, and we are not weak. Cheers followed, not loud, but full of meaning, as the stars watched from above. The people of Alenia and the humans shared one quiet truth: they had changed the galaxy. Not through domination, not through power, but through a choice to stand beside each other when it mattered most. Later that night, as lights dimmed and people rested, A single human beacon sent out a new message. It traveled far across space. Simple. Words: Alenia stands. Alliance formed. Humanity answered the call. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known systems, Silent Watcher received the signal. It recorded it, stored it, and for the first time in 1,000 years, has changed its file. Threat confirmed. Unity observed. Humans are not to be ignored.